Hi, everyone. Thank you all for being here. I know most of you, but I'm going to still introduce myself. My name is Jennifer Mitchell. I currently serve as Union's Chief Diversity Officer and Dean for Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, and Belonging. And like one of tonight's keynote speakers, I'm also a Union alum, and I'm thrilled to welcome Pooja Kothari back to campus. When a colleague in economics, Professor Schenner, forwarded me an invitation to Pooja's Zoom workshop on microaggressions last fall, I was a little skeptical, I won't lie. Zoom is a difficult interface. Microaggressions are a challenging subject on a good day. And every experience I've had attending something like what Pooja was advertising left me frustrated by a lack of depth and intentionality, by a lack of engagement, by an oversimplification of concepts, etc. So imagine my surprise when Pooja's workshop did none of that. Pooja engaged with folks from a wide range of industries and was incredibly dynamic, knowledgeable, and super thoughtful. Afterwards, I knew I was going to do my best to bring Pooja back to campus, and here we are. So many thanks to everyone who helped bring this together, Kim Lynch, the folks in ITS, Debbie, Catherine, the Mellon Foundation, and everyone who is joining us tonight. Before I introduce tonight's speaker, I'll remind you all that there's a reception in the basement following this keynote, so please join us there for continued conversation and some tasty treats. And if there are students in the room, I don't know that there are, but anyway, if there are, there is a workshop that Pooja is facilitating tomorrow at 5 p.m. in this same room. So without further ado, I will introduce our speakers tonight. So Pooja Kothari is a trailblazer in the field of diversity, equity, inclusion, and justice, DEIJ. The acronyms change, but you get the concepts. And DEIJ training, guiding organizations towards profound cultural transformation. As the founder of Boundless Awareness, LLC, a certified minority and woman-owned business in New York City and New York State, Pooja brings a powerful blend of lived experience, legal expertise, and profound empathy to her work. Pooja's first career was as a public defender with the Legal Aid Society criminal defense practice, advocating for her clients in all aspects of the criminal case, from arraignment and bail applications, investigations, plea negotiations, and felony and misdemeanor jury trials. She uses these experiences to present DEIJ work at the intersection of race, disability, sexuality, gender, class, and more, examining the histories and existing structures of oppression through a multimodal pedagogical process. Her workshops are experiential journeys, custom built to address the unique concerns and experiences of each client organization. Pooja is a cis, queer, first-generation South Asian woman of color and parent of two Black and brown cis girls. These identities infuse her work with an authenticity and urgency. With compassion and vulnerability, she challenges bias to foster truly inclusive spaces. Boundless Awareness's mission is to equip organizations with the tools to engage in honest, respectful dialogue and make decisions rooted in equity and belonging. From government agencies and nonprofits to law firms and global corporations, Pooja's clients emerge equipped to build a more just, equitable, and inclusive workplace. Pooja graduated with a BA from Union College in 2003, an MA in International Relations from Johns Hopkins School of International Studies in 2005, and a JD from Brooklyn Law School in 2009. Claire Zartarian is a deputy chief of the Criminal Defense Representation Team at the New York State Office of Indigent Legal Services, ILS, which is the mission of improving the quality of legal representation provided by New York's county-based public defense system. This includes the representation of people who cannot afford to retain an attorney but need legal representation because they are facing criminal prosecution or family court involvement. She joined ILS in January 2018 after spending 9 years as a staff attorney at the Legal Aid Society in New York City. While at the Legal Aid Society, she worked as a trial attorney in the criminal defense practice in Brooklyn, both in the downtown Brooklyn office and at the Red Hook Community Justice Center's Legal Aid Society office. From 2018 to 2022, Claire worked on ILS's statewide implementation team responsible for implementing the Hurrell-Haring settlement agreement through New York State. She's been a deputy chief of the criminal defense representation team since 2023. Claire obtained her BA from the College of the Holy Cross in 2003 and her JD from Brooklyn Law School in 2008. So please join me in welcoming Pooja and Claire tonight.
Mic check. Hey. Yes, does this work? Yeah, okay, excellent. Claire, how about you?
I think it's working.
Okay,
Okay.
all right, excellent. Okay, let me know if it's not picking up. So thank you so much. Jen, Jen has been one of the best people. You know, I work with a lot of clients, a lot of private clients, nonprofits, universities, and the person you liaise with as being in my role is really the most important part of, like, these workshops and keynotes are very, very important. But the person you work with to set it all up is is like, that's where the bread and butter is. And working with Jen has been such a delight. And she's everything I know that you know she is. She's just an amazing, thoughtful, organized, and so reliable and so respectful. So thank you so much. It's been such a pleasure working with you. I hope we like always work together. Um, Thank you also to all of you, to Union College, to President Harris for having us here. And of course, also to Fuad for recommending me. You've always been in my corner, as well as Brian. So thank you so much. Okay, so as we started, as Jen started us all off, both of us are former public defenders. And the reason why white supremacy and anti-oppression work fuse together, and why we're bringing this work to you, is because we see it every day in our criminal system. It's you know, the white supremacy is part of all of our institutions. And when you work as a public defender, you really see the swamp, the lowest, the basest of the base, just worst behavior you could possibly imagine is in the courtroom. And you have to interact with that every single day and think that that's normal. You walk into a courtroom. I remember my first time walking into the courtroom as a public defender and seeing the gallery of people waiting for their cases to be called. And because of the racist, classist, ableist, transphobic, homophobic, misogynist policing in this country, our clients as public defenders and our clients are people who live below the federal poverty guidelines, are Black and brown and undocumented people. So you walk into court and you see a gallery of people arrested for and charged with crimes, waiting for their case to be called. And how can you not inhale that white supremacy and then exhale it? Every day you're seeing the same image of people sitting and waiting for their cases to be called. How do you not have racist thoughts seeing the same image every day? You know, it's the anti-oppression work starts with us. It starts with us as individuals. No one is above it just because you're a public defender and you believe in like due process for everybody, which I'm laughing because that sentence didn't mean anything to the general public until like 2 weeks ago. And now it actually has like real fruitful meaning that is scaring everybody. But for us as public defenders, we always said we're public defenders because everyone deserves due process. And the moment someone doesn't have due process, we are all at risk, which all of us are gaining a lot of awareness now because of that. So when we talk about white supremacy and confronting with hope and optimism, there is so much we can say that is wrong with our society and how we live in white supremacy. But how do we do that and move forward? How do we do that and keep the hope and sustain ourselves and nourish our community? I wanted Claire to be part of this conversation today because, one, we work together. She knows all the ins and outs of oppression work and being in the courtroom and interrupting and feeling all of this oppression while also doing your best to represent the client next to you. Claire, you know, you'll see today, really is very, very critical of all systems. And she does it on a daily basis. She does it in her current role now. And I wanted you to see somebody, and not just myself who's like doing these workshops and speaking here, but I wanted you to see a lay person who integrates it into her daily life. So Claire, I want to pass it to you. Can you tell us what you do, why this work means something to you, and how it comes into your daily life?
Sure. And I want to be clear that I never feel like, oh, I've gotten there. I've done it. You know, I've like interrupted oppression and I've interrupted racism and I've like accomplished it. But what I do try. And I think that that is our responsibility. So in my current role at the Office of Indigent Legal Services, which is like such a mouthful, and no one at my office likes our name. Sorry, this is being recorded. I mean, it's fine. So I work with public defenders across the state, and I work with county officials. And my biggest challenge in my role is to negotiate with county officials and to empower public defenders. Because county officials, understandably, do not prioritize equity work. They don't prioritize public defense work. The public defender office is not generally the most popular of the county departments. That may come as a surprise. But part of my work is empowering those public defenders to advocate for their clients, to seek justice, to try to create systems of equity in each county in New York. And there are many. There are 62 counties in New York and plus New York City. And so the work is very different. It's different and my regions include Long Island, New York City, up the Hudson Valley, up all the way to the North Country. Sometimes I have trips where my phone says, "Welcome to Canada." I'm like, no, not in Canada. So it's a huge different, from rural to urban to suburban communities, and trying to find what the work is in each of those communities is part of what I do. And so I find it very rewarding because it's systems work. It's so different from when you have an individual standing next to you who you're advocating for. And sometimes it's not quite as rewarding because I don't have a person who I'm representing anymore. But it is very interesting, and the challenges are systemic. They're not individual. And so as a public defender, you feel so frustrated because so often you're like, I can't change the system. I can't change the system. All I can do is represent this person and fight for this person and try to get the best result, or at least stand next to them and give them dignity while some horrible stuff is happening. And so part of the reason that I wanted to work at ILS was because I said, I want to be in the systems work. I want to do systems change. And so that's what we try to do at ILS. And I've been there, for a couple years now, and the work is, there's always more work to be done. So thank you for being here.
Thanks, Claire. What we need from all of you is you'll see on your chair a note card and a pen. And we need your what's the word I'm looking for?
I don't know.
Interactive presence.
Yes.
Thank you. And you can just raise your hand. You can call it out. We're a small group today. You can write it on your note card and pass it up to Jen or Brianne. We'll take it from you. Or, just ask the question, make your comment. Like we're all here together, but we need your interactive presence here today. And we're going to be asking you some questions also on the screen. So you will need your phones. I always say, like, put your phones away. But no, these days, you really need your phones in these workshops, because that's how we, run polls and get you participating. So, okay, I want to start us off. And, if you were in the faculty workshop with us, that just ended, you'll also remember this quote that we had. Come on, people, you can do it. Oh, yeah. Okay, I'm back on. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, so this quote is from Toni Morrison, and I'll read it because we're also recording this. So it says, the very serious function of racism is distraction. It keeps you from doing your work. It keeps you explaining over and over again your reason for being. Somebody says you have no language and you spend 20 years proving that you do. Somebody says your head isn't shaped properly, so you have scientists working on that fact that it is. Somebody says you have no art, you dredge that up. Somebody says you have no kingdoms, so you dredge that up. None of this is necessary. There will always be one more thing. This quote is from a speech she gave in Portland, Oregon in 1975, which was only 50 years ago. And I bring that up because, we hear the number 1975, what century was that in, but it's like, one thing that I hear so often is like, well, this is just new, or like, and we forget there is so many hundreds of years of history where this moment has been happening over and over in a variety of iterations. This isn't new. We are new to it because, you got to learn everything for the first time every time you're born. So there's no like institutional history that carries on with us. So she's talking about this 50 years ago. And it's true today. And we see it with our administration just throwing out executive orders or all of this rhetoric to scare us. And then what do? We get prepared to litigate. Okay, we get prepared to find our plaintiffs and to make sure that if that executive order ever becomes law, then we're ready to, which is obviously what you should be doing, is what we should be doing. But it's a distraction because half the time they never move forward with it. So it's to keep us busy. All of this white supremacy rhetoric is here not only to maintain the status quo, but it's to keep us fighting on all of these smaller battles that we have to wage, that we can't actually attack the frontier that we're of white supremacy. So today, I don't want to like sit in that like, oh, they keep stymieing us, or oh, this is like just so a repeat of history. We can do something. So this book is phenomenal. I'm going to just get to the front page to show you what it's called. This book is called Social Change Now, A Guide for Reflection and Connection. It's written by Deepa Iyer from the Building Movement Project. And the worksheet you have has all of that information on there. So you should definitely go to that website and check it out. And we have some other worksheets for you to look at. But what the amazing thing that Deepa Iyer does in this map is that she shows us what's possible. In this social change ecosystem map, you have your values in the center. So people who value equity, justice, liberation, and solidarity. How are we moving towards that goal? We all have roles to play. And all of the circles are all the types of roles that we can be. So when Claire and I were public defenders, we could say we were frontline responders. So people would get arrested. We were there on the front line to defend and support not only them, but explain what bail is to their families. They could lose their home, their kids, their job. We're support all, and of course, the immigration and customs enforcement is completely intertwined with the criminal system. And so we were there also defending their immigration rights. And so, or if you're an EMT, I mean, those are like real frontline responders. But if you're an artist and you know how to tell stories through your art, whether that's, however visually you depict things, then you're a storyteller. You're telling other people's stories through your art or through your literal storytelling. If you can raise your hand when somebody says something oppressive or harmful, and you can say, I'm sorry, I just want to call attention to that phrase that you used. What I'd really prefer us to use going forward is XYZ. Then you're a disruptor. You're standing up and disrupting somebody. If you go home to Thanksgiving and your family's talking about something in a way that you find harmful or oppressive, and you say, oh, Uncle so-and-so, Aunt so-and-so, the words that we use today for that is this. You're a disruptor. It can happen in small groups. You don't have to be at the front of the protest leading, although you're also a disruptor if you do that, but you don't have to be there. You can disrupt in your everyday life. Wherever you find yourself, and the packet will explain all of these circles, but if you are a visionary, you are someone who so clearly sees where the movement needs to be, and you're going there and you don't get distracted with all this stuff, you're a visionary and you keep people online. If you're really good at knowing what the group needs and processing or holding space for grief or trauma, you're a caregiver. If you're really good at working on teams and being like, okay, what can I do? Oh, you're delegating that task to me? Great. I'm great with timelines and tasks, and I can also delegate. Then you're a builder. We all have a role to play in the movement. Just got to find which ones are your skills and your passions are aligned in, and just sit there and just sit in that. That's where you belong. And we all have a role to play. And this is where our hope and optimism lies. So some of the questions you'll see in this packet that Deepa asked is, how can I be of service to a campaign or cause that I care about? How can I utilize my strengths and skills to advance the broader vision of the community I'm part of? Who am I accountable to? And am I taking time to reflect on how I show up and how I'm being perceived? Answering these questions will help you figure out where your role is in fighting and resisting the current situation that we're in, and also the movement against white supremacy. Okay, this is like the only part where that's a little lecture-y, so I'm very sorry. We have to build a brave space because we're a small group and we're talking about really hard things. The faculty and staff workshop that we just did just went through this brave space, and I want to go through it with you. So these are the expectations that I have of you today. Active listening, of course, reactive versus responsive. Is that what? Okay, great. So that means instead of reacting to anything that we say or anything that you all ask or say, I ask that you be responsive to it, meaning take a second to sit with it and just take that second to process a little bit about where you're at. If you don't get there, it's okay. This is about practicing, not about perfection. A commitment to carry today's experience forward in our work. Of course, I ask you that you welcome discomfort. You know, even saying the words white supremacy are words that people are uncomfortable with for so many reasons. One is it's usually not said. You know what we say instead of white supremacy? We say it's a race issue. And what that does, and you know, we talked about this in our workshop about being specific and precise with our wording. What that does is it puts the burden on people of color, especially Black people and other non-Black people of color like myself. So if it's about white supremacy, name it. And it's hard to get there if you're not used to saying those two words, but that's what it is. It's not about race. It is about racism, but we don't say that. We say, oh, they have race is a big issue in their workplace. What does that mean? Who's the onus is on who to figure that out? Doesn't sound like the onus is on the mainstream or people who have mainstream identities. So I like to say it for what it actually is. And if that causes discomfort to you, I just ask that you be curious and open, and maybe you can whisper those words and start building up your confidence and courage to say what it really is. Okay, critical thinking obviously is very important for today. Expect and accept non-closure. We're talking about such a deep topic. We can't get to all of it, but we do have a reception afterwards, so let's talk about it more there. Intent and impact, intent versus impact is, it's gonna come up in a bunch of our stories today. And it came up so much in our workshop. It's not about, well, today is about practicing looking at the impact. We have so much practice in our lives, understanding someone's intent, mitigating impact based on somebody's intent, like, oh, she didn't mean to, she has a good heart. You know, he just doesn't know better. I mean, we always focus on intent instead of thinking about the impact that our actions or anybody else's actions have on the bigger group. And so today is just about practicing impact. Who's impacted? How are they impacted? And how can we get more practice in analyzing that? We have the power right now because we're here at the front of the room and we've been asked here, and you're all very polite and looking at us and giving us your attention. But really, that's the only reason we have the power right now. I want us to recognize the differences in power in this room, faculty to staff to students, and us, former PDs who are also here. How much space we're taking up and what that power differential means. A commitment to self-reflection and the modified Las Vegas rule. This is recorded. There is no Las Vegas rule. What is said here is certainly being streamed out and leaving there. So What this means though is, and it's also for those who are watching, we're not going to, we are fair game, but we're not going to comment on what anyone else contributes to this session. Those who are here and present have been so courageous and bold to be here and to interact with us that we're going to respect everybody's dignity and not talk about people, but we're going to talk about the lessons learned. And it's always fair game to talk about me and also this
And me.
and
Yeah.
Claire. So we're not subject to that, but all of you, I want you to feel protected by that. Is there anything else we should add to this list before we get started, before we can have a conversation? We get started?
Sure.
Your help, Jen. Our next. Okay, this is where you need your phone. Claire and I would like to know, why are you here? Why is anti-oppression work important to you? And if I'm in the way, am I in the way for you?
If you don't feel comfortable using your phone, or maybe you are tech phobic, my parents are here. You can also write it on a note card.
So the question is, why is anti-oppression work important to you? You can write as many reasons as you want down on your note cards, and I think you get like unlimited responses. So feel free to put a lot. It's anonymous, and it looks like everyone's done with the QR code. So let's switch to the other site so we can see what some of the responses are.
This is so cool.
Someone needs a QR code?
You can also write on the note card. Okay.
Okay. There it is. Okay. Because resistance is the only way forward. I need to know who I can count on. That's why anti-oppression work is meaningful to this person, because inequities keep growing. I'm an administrator at the college and I have an obligation to leave this community better than I found it. Oh my goodness, yes. To engage in this important discussion and implement these skills into my role.
I hate oppression. We can't see it anymore, but I like that one.
Oh. I feel powerless under current federal administration. Yeah, absolutely. That I'm sure many people would thumbs up. Yes. It's my responsibility to learn and make personal changes that positively impact others. This is so interesting. So some people feel like it's an individual responsibility to engage in this work, and others are here to gain understanding as to what they can do in this current political moment. I want to help people to have a voice and a path to success and a positive place. Oh, the world has the possibility to be so beautiful. And this work is necessary to get there. I love that. We just talked about like how much human capital and like wisdom has been, wasted because of white supremacy. Hundreds of years that this country has been, since colonization. Sorry.
Floundering.
Floundering, yes. Since the original genocide of indigenous people and the discounting of their lives, and then all of the horrible tragedies since then. This world had such potential of being such a beautiful world, and instead we're focused on white supremacy and power, and who can amass most of it. So let's talk about white supremacy. Dan, could you switch back to our next QR code? Yes, there we are. Okay, so when we use the words white supremacy, what does it mean to you? Or when you saw the words white supremacy in the title of this talk, what were the thoughts that came across your mind, or the images that came across your mind? We're good. White supremacy means the foundation of America, oppression, the disrespect and disregard of and dehumanization of people of color. Yeah, the rotting foundation of the society we live in.
Mainstream culture.
White supremacy means racism.
Disrespect and disregard and we already got that one. The assumption that light skin color or white culture is superior to the alternative.
Yeah, right.
Perpetuating the status quo.
Where whiteness is synonymous with normal. Yeah, you know, sometimes when we ask that question of like, how do you know you're white? Which we ask that question in our workshops, it's like, well, I'll say in our workshop, we had excellent answers and like excellent participation on that. But generally people because whiteness is synonymous with normal, people feel like it's, they have to prove a negative. Oh, how do I prove that I know I'm white? How do I prove that society knows I'm white? It's the absence of XYZ.
Default setting, whiteness as default setting.
This is excellent. The ICE agents, meaning immigration customs enforcement agents, harming people, and all the BS in America is turning into, and has been. Like Toni Morrison has been recalling to us, has been. This country has been like that. The KKK, but that's too easy. How institutions and policies sustain an unlevel playing field. Is there anything else up there that you want to note down?
People in power wreaking havoc on underprivileged.
Okay, so we've run the gamut from like violence and murder, mass murder, to unfair and inequitable policies. Wow. All of that is violence. But we have like human bodies on the line versus, you know, the policies that enact all of that. This is great. The invisible hand. Oh, I love that. I'm so glad I found that before we move back to our slides. So this is how I define white supremacy. And like the person said, it's not just the KKK. It's the covert presenting in the forms. It is also covert, presenting in the forms of behavior that are based in a false hierarchy of looking at human beings from a historically racist, misogynistic, Eurocentric perspective. So the only difference in your definitions and mine is that I included misogyny. So is there anyone who can like talk about that a little bit? And I don't want to put anybody on the spot, but if you feel like participating, why is misogyny in there? Aside from like, you know, bell hooks and everybody telling us that it needs to be. Yes, so. Okay. Yeah. So you have non-white perspectives not having such a strong when we say patriarchal, it's like really embedded in misogyny. It's not just like cisgender male-led. It's oppression of anybody else, any other gender. So yeah, absolutely. Why else is misogyny in here for a white supremacy definition? Because it's not just about whiteness. Why does it also have to be about misogyny? Yeah, it's Brianne said it's about cis white men. So those in power are in power not only because of their whiteness, but because of their misogyny. Cis het white men. Well, yeah. Unfortunately, even if you're not het, if you're a cis white man, we have a few who have so much power right now. What does white supremacy mean to you? And how does it like manifest? Like this definition of white, like white supremacy thinking and also misogyny?
To me?
Yeah.
I mean, when I think about white supremacy, I think about the air that we breathe, often the things that people had written about it being the default. I think also, you want me to tell a story?
I do.
All right.
I love a good story.
I love telling a good story. This is why Pooja invited me to do this. So this is actually like, it's a micro moment, you know, but I think about it often, and I think about it in these terms of like anti-oppression work and white supremacy and how casual it can be. I was working in Red Hook in the community justice court. So to set the scene, this is a small courthouse. It's got one courtroom. It's in Brooklyn. It's in this neighborhood, Red Hook, which has like the biggest housing project in all of Brooklyn. And even though now it's like incredibly gentrified, it still has the biggest housing project in all of Brooklyn. So there will always have the largest housing project in all of Brooklyn. And so the courthouse serves that community. And it's the same players all the time. So the same court officers, same police officers, same DAs, and same public defenders. It's me and two other public defenders there. And we often had the same clients who we would see, you know, they would continue to get arrested for the same minor petty things. And a lot of our clients had, you know, there was mental health issues, there were substance abuse issues, chemical addiction issues, and we tried to help people, you know, with their lives. And I tried to help them with their cases. But I had one young person who I was representing, and I think it was a case that involved an order of protection. So it must have been like, I don't know, some kind of assault case, or maybe taking something from a store. I don't know. But my client, the court officer was, you know, after you see the judge, you get a new copy of your order of protection to like bring home with you. I don't know what you're going to do with it. Most people just throw it away. But my client was standing there, and the court officer said, okay, you know, counselor, like, here's the paperwork. Tell your client, like, he, she, they, whatever, need to wait for their paperwork. And my client was, you know, gender fluid, and sometimes identified in one way and sometimes another. And I would either ask them how, you know, they felt like being referred to that day, or I would just use gender neutral pronouns, which is easy. Like, it's not that hard to do. So I think the court officer, and I was with that court officer all the time. I mean, we were there every day. We had a good relationship. You know, he would tape, when I got a package delivered to the courthouse, he would tape it to the wall, like out of my reach, or the ceiling. It was like he pranked me all the time. It was like a good, fun dynamic, okay? Especially because like I hate court officers, you know, but like for all of that, it was pretty good. And I was like, whoa, man, we don't talk like that here. I was, you know, I feel very protective toward my clients. And as a public defender, you feel, I mean, the word responsibility, how many times did I see it up there? You feel very responsible to your clients. So like if I saw a court staff talking to my client, I always like sidle over and be like, what's going on? Are you, you know, does somebody need some help here? Like, what do you want? Maybe overprotective of my clients. But when that happened, and it was just so casual, you know, the court officer probably was flustered. Maybe couldn't remember, maybe was just like, he said one thing and then he was like, oh, maybe that's the wrong thing. Like, let's assume the best of intentions, whatever. I was just like, you can't say that here. That's very disrespectful. And then after the interaction took place, I went to talk to him afterwards because, you know, I also want to continue having a good relationship with this court officer. I want him to keep on taping my packages to the ceiling. That's really funny when that happens. And I was like, hey, man, you know, you can't talk to our clients like that. And like, I know you weren't trying to hurt anybody's feelings, but that's like really, you know, that's really disrespectful. And like, you really can't do that. And he was like, so nervous. He was so nervous and so flustered and was like, okay, don't tell the judge that that happened. And I was like, I'm not going to tell the judge that that happened. I know you're a good person and I know you're a good court officer. You just have to speak respectfully. And it was like a nothing interaction, but it wasn't nothing. And it was, I was appreciative that my level of protective instinct, and the closest thing I can compare it to is now I'm a mother of 2 young children, and I'm constantly hyper vigilant of their like physical safety, which they have no regard for. And like, I'm just always chasing them around. And that's the most similar I can describe the feeling of how I felt about my clients. Like, I was like, these people are gonna get railroaded by the judicial system, the prosecutors, and like, you know, they're gonna be made to do a program even though all they did was jump over the turnstile to get on the subway. Like, it's so stupid. And being that like very responsible for their safety and their emotional, physical, legal health and well-being. And something I think about often is how I really want to live in a world where we all have that sort of sense of responsibility towards one another. I mean, I feel so like it would be nice if we all had some level of protectiveness and care for the emotional safety of the people around us. Like, it's not that much to ask, I don't think, for people to be aware and to care about their community members and the people around them. So that's one.
I love this story
Story.
because, you know, it invokes this misogyny within white supremacy, because white supremacy dictates how we're supposed to dress, what is considered elegant, what's considered messy, what's considered, you know, white supremacy dictates all of the roles that we're supposed to play in society. And we can also say that white supremacy is the umbrella under which ableism, anything related to gender is under, class, and obviously, you know, whiteness, prizing that above all else. But white supremacy is eugenics. White supremacy is disability and ableism. That white supremacy is infused into all of that because white supremacy says this is what the ideal is, and we're all part of it, and you all aren't. And it dictates who is separate from it. So on top of misogynistic and Eurocentric, you can put, you know, ableist and classist, and all of that is all under white supremacy. That's what white supremacy dictates. So one thing I want to go on a little detour about what you said. How would you explain how you feel about your clients that is different than like being a white savior and like thinking that you know better than your clients, or that you're, you know, saving them from themselves, or whatever that means to you? Like, how is your feelings towards them different than that?
Well, when I think of white saviorhood, I think that there's an element of it's disempowering, because you're saying like I'm in charge of saving you, and like I'm gonna rescue this situation in the way that I think I see fit, versus empowering someone or like using your whiteness to in some way interrupt something that's happening, but not necessarily speaking for that person or saying this is the path this should take. I don't want to be the I am technically the mouthpiece for my client when I'm in court and like on the record or whatever, but like in that little situation, I wasn't going to speak on behalf of my client, and say, I was speaking on behalf of myself.
Okay. This is, well, I want to pull this a little bit more, because when we talk about like interrupting stuff, we talk about this topic, especially in just the workshop we just finished, is why does it matter to you?
That's not the world that I want to live in.
But white supremacy exists and it affects you in ways that are detrimental to yourself. But like your whiteness and using your white, like, but why do you care so much? You benefit from it.
Right. We were just talking about this.
I mean, why should anybody care like the way you do, more or less, whatever, if they're white? Why should white supremacy mean like, oh, that white people should be involved? And I open it up to you. I'm wondering, but I would of course love to hear from you. But if you want no cards or raise your hand, however you want to participate.
Yeah, why do we care? I could say my parents raised me right. They're right here. They did. Because I don't want to live in that world. Like that seems this is being recorded. I can't use curse words. This a bad. All right. And I'm in front of my parents. That's a shitty world. I don't want to live in a shitty white supremacist world. That feels like nauseating to me. Why does it feel nauseating? I can see you asking the question with your eyes. I don't know why it feels so nauseating, but it does. It feels really horrible.
It affects the people I love and people that I'm close to. A lot of ways. Color. And one of my best friends are as well. So it's very strange.
And that affects you. And that's your stake in it. Yeah. Yeah, because it's painful to see other people hurt, because it hurts your sense of, remember that, our wheel, oh God, am I going to go all the way back to it? Sorry, everybody. But because your values, and I presume everybody here has these values in common in the center of that circle: equity, liberation, justice, and solidarity. Some people are really values-based people and they make decisions based on their values. Not every single decision, but the important decisions, to say the least, and also some ancillary ones, because they are values-based. And so they are like, does this decision align with my values? And that's how they live their life. I think you and I happen to be people like that, and probably many in this room. But that doesn't mean you can't like still do this work without like living directly by your values. Everybody lives differently, and we'll make different decisions based on that. Okay, so one of your values is liberation and solidarity, and so that's why you do it. That's why you do it, and also you have people who are affected directly by white supremacy. Yeah, Andrea. Of course.
Miss.
Slightly, I would like to be credible that I'm dealing with the people that I'm with. Like, I don't want to benefit unfairly from an advantage that then, diminishes my credibility.
Yeah. That's deep.
Yeah.
That is deep, because we were just talking out of earshot. She's not a plant. But we were just talking, okay, so like, when affirmative action, the biggest affirmative action is white supremacy, right? So the biggest benefactors of white supremacy are cis white men, like you were saying. And then once affirmative action became legislation, the biggest benefactors were white women. And now it's like this has become so perverted. But all it meant was this. Can we make sure that I didn't get my job just because of my whiteness, but I really got it because I'm really good? And I feel like if you're like in these mainstream identities and you live in a white supremacy culture, how do you ever know if you are? And I hate to say this because it's usually used against people of color, but how do white people know that they're qualified?
Right.
If all the advantages and you're starting at rung 8 out of a 10 rung ladder, how do you know that you're supposed to be there? Ouch. But you see how that got twisted around to disabled, queer, trans people of color. It got turned around to be put on us to be like, oh, I don't know if you're qualified. You're not a white person. You're not a white woman. You're not a white man. So I don't know. I'm going to question your qualifications. It's like, no, brother, it's the opposite. I'm questioning your qualifications. Yeah. We don't know how you got here. I know how, people of color, they say, especially people who are Black, you have to work twice and 4 times as hard to get to the same place. So it's actually the opposite question. And yet we have been programmed to say, I will hire a person of color as long as they're qualified. It's a sentence I use in other workshops that other people have said directly to me. As long as they're qualified, I'm going to hire them. But it's like, their resume only got in front of you because they are so qualified because they had to prove it for so long. Okay, sorry, I'm getting really ramped up on this sucker. Okay, so I want to go back to your example that you gave and also ask you, so I asked you, why is it important to you? Can you give me a little historical rundown of how did you know you're white? What did it mean to you? How did you start challenging whiteness? Can you give us like how you grew up and your relationship to whiteness?
Sure. So I grew up in a very white town, a wonderful town, predominantly white. And I was aware of my whiteness, probably as a kid. I think that in my youth, my whiteness and race in general was a very abstract concept. I mean, we had maybe a handful of students in our school who were people of color, maybe 5 out of like 120. And I knew on some level, like our country has a history of, we have this legacy of slavery. There's redlining. There's, that racism exists in our society. And it was very abstract. I didn't really understand it on any other level, probably until I moved to New York City. I went to a very predominantly white college as well. When I was living in New York City, I think is the first time that I developed a very, a much more personal understanding of racism, and working at the Legal Aid Society in particular. I mean, it's like being on the front lines. And to kind of spell it out, because it's so hard to like talk about being like the work that we did in Brooklyn to lay people. But most of my caseload was misdemeanors. Like you think of being a public defender, you're like, oh, sex crimes and like all these like, fancy, whatever. It's turnstile jumping, marijuana at the time when marijuana was very much illegal, marijuana arrests, trespassing. All my clients were arrested for trespassing. It was when they were in someone's building, like a NYCHA building, New York City Housing Authority building, and visiting a friend or whatever. And police have the authority to just patrol public housing. So it's not like a regular apartment building where police can't just come into the apartment building. In New York City, police have the authority to go into any public housing building, and they just kind of round people up and ask for their IDs. And if your ID shows a different address, they arrest you for trespassing. That's how it works. So I just represented, 90% of my cases were these types of cases. So when I was working, and when you are a new public defender, you're in arraignments, that's when you pick up new cases. It's an 8-hour shift. and you interview somewhere between like 15 and 25 clients during that time, and you have 4 of those shifts a month. So you're conducting like somewhere between, maybe 50, 60 to 100 interviews each month. And I would hear the same story, like the same story 100 times a month of my clients getting approached by the police, made to hand over their ID, and then like told to empty their pockets and asked like, where are the guns at? Where are the drugs at? And like this stupid script that the police officers would use to shake down the young Black men who were my clients, because it was like 99% young Black men. And hearing the same story over and over and over again from all of my clients who came from all across Brooklyn. And I was like, oh my God, like they are living in a different world. The Black experience in Brooklyn is completely different than the white experience in Brooklyn. I have never been approached by a police officer. Plus law school, I was in New York City for like 12 years. And I was not living a perfect life those 12 years, like there were times when if I had to empty my pockets, like would not have gone well for me, okay? I walked past a police officer with literally an open container. I was on Smith Street in Brooklyn with an open beer at 5:30 in the like early evening, just walking. I walked past 2 police officers. I was like, those are police officers. And they just looked at me and they walked right past. I was like, wow, I'm like actually like immune. Like I could literally do anything. And my clients can't even visit their uncle in his building and deliver him a meal, Yeah. It was like, there's these different worlds layered on top of each other in New York City. There's like ultra wealthy, there's like, at least the time I lived there, like hipstery kind of, going out to shows, whatever. And then there's like everyone else. Okay, I'm oversimplifying. There are probably like 100 other universes in New York City of like little communities that I have no idea about. But they're all living on top of each other. They're all riding the subway together. But I'm living in a completely different world with a completely different sense of safety than my clients are. And that was a profound moment for me of feeling like how unbelievably racist New York City and our world is. And then, moving here to kind of keep the story going. And I live in Del Mar, which is a lovely town, also a predominantly white town. And when I first moved and I remember when I first moved to New York City feeling like, wow, this is so diverse. It's so different from my normal, which is like so white. And then I moved to Del Mar and I was like, this is so weird. Where are all the other people? Like, how come everyone here is white? And it felt really abnormal to me. But I think about that and how, I'm raising 2 white boys in this white town and how to talk to them about their whiteness, make sure they understand what that means and that they need to be dismantling that as they move through the world. So those are all things that I think about all the time.
Yeah. Yeah, and who made all the neighborhoods one? Everywhere across the country looks the same. And, it looks exactly the same. You go one suburb in Albany and one suburb in Rochester, and it looks exactly the same, or in Ohio or wherever. So that's white supremacy. Like that's how our suburban planning was made.
Redlining.
Redlining.
I mean, there are a million different things that went into that.
Covenants, racial covenants, racist covenants. I said it. Did you hear that? I said racial covenants. Racist, white supremacist covenants in homes. Who can own them? Who can buy them? What other things? How has the urban planning been influenced by white supremacy? What are some other ways? Yes, Suhail. Okay, building highways where communities of color were at, and what's wrong with that? I'm only saying it because we want to be really specific and explicit. And then what happened?
Takes away the house.
Takes away the housing, more, divides the community. Carolyn? They're destroyed, pollution, noise. Yeah.
Values, housing values.
Exactly. Resale value goes down. There's an app now. What is it called?
Zillow?
No. Where?
Ah, sorry, Pooch.
Next
We
door.
finish each other's sentences.
So ridiculous. The next door app, you know that? Or Citizen in New York? we
Oh,
have
yeah.
Citizen. Yeah. And like and what was before next door? There was like a Facebook community watch group or something.
Oh, God.
Say it again? Yeah, okay, those still exist. So like you can report on your neighbors and of course who got reported on.
Well, and in the Bethlehem Families page, it's always people being like, oh my God, someone on the sex offender registry moved to our town. I was like, you're right. They didn't send them off to the island of sex offenders. Like, what do you want people to do? You know?
Yeah.
They have to live.
Yeah. And just so you know, sex offender laws are really, really, really very strict and very punitive. So
Yeah.
the fact that anyone can move anywhere is a miracle because you can't live, it proscribes where you can live. So you literally can't live anywhere.
And you have to keep on registering like every, it's very frequent check-ins. Like if you haven't been violated for not for failure to register, which is its own separate, anyway, I could go on.
Claire, it's
Sorry.
the audience.
Sorry.
Okay. So, yeah, so these apps, who are we really singling out and feeling who is in danger? So, when you talk about, the neighborhood you live in or the neighborhoods that we live in, the one thing we don't want is like shame or guilt or embarrassment. Like, oh, I live in Delmar and I'm just really sorry it's an all white neighborhood. No, you just be critical and live in this white neighborhood. It's there because of redlining and all of this white supremacy. And that's why my neighborhood is segregated. And I'm working every day to be, one of these circles here, a builder, an organizer, an experimenter, a guide, a healer, a caregiver, whatever you're doing, like just do it from the skill set that is you're most acquainted with, and you're like, I am confident I'm a really good caregiver because I just seem to sense what other people need. Just sit in those really good skills. I want to do an exercise with you to keep going on our white supremacy definition. This is an exercise called Who is Our Normal? Here are the instructions. Words are going to pop up on the screen in different locations. So you have to trace the word where it lands. I'll give 5 seconds between each word because you have to find the word. Your instruction is to just notice the image that comes up or the word, whatever it might be. What comes up in your mind? Don't try to change it. Don't be critical of it. Just accept it. It is what it is. And it's private. So it's all for you to just know about. But just accept and move on to the next word. Notice what that brought up. Got it? There's probably like 15, 20 words on this thing. So we'll take about 5 minutes. Okay. What do you notice about these words? Okay, there are words to stereotype people. Okay, it's gendered.
I feel like they're words that like my instinct is to say they're gendered, and then there's another voice in me that says, no, they're not gendered.
Why?
Why are they not gendered?
Yeah.
Because I'm like, we shouldn't let whatever has taught us that strong means man, like we need to combat that. That like that's not true. That's not the true connotation of that word, but that's what's been baked into my like upbringing and
Yeah.
by society,
Okay.
not by you.
Oh, not by her mom, she's saying. Yes, of course not. What else comes up for you? Okay, so they're gendered. There are ways to stereotype people. They're gendered, but they shouldn't be gendered. One might argue, oh, I use assertive or I use indecisive to label men. I use assertive to label whatever, somebody. Oh, when I see the word ditzy, I don't think of a woman. You know, people say lots of things. So what do you say? How do you show? Yeah, it is gendered. Yes, Nick. Yeah. All right. So Nick's saying these are ways to dismiss people.
Reductive.
Yeah. Yes, please. Yeah. Okay. Say it again.
They think
Yeah.
there are two.
Oh, I see. Yes. Right. Right. Yeah, okay. So a lot of these are if we're talking about like the very typical like cisgender man, a lot of these are good for them, but then they're not good for a cis woman. Or they're all used in this way to degrade anybody who's not a cis man. Let's put it that way. Because that's how misogyny is used, to dictate who is like, who can be in power and who should be distrusted or mistrusted for being too assertive or too bitchy. Well, does anyone here speak a language other than English? Yeah, okay. In the languages that you all speak, do you have like nouns and adjectives that have to agree with each other based on gender? Yeah, okay. But in English, we don't have that. We have the chair. This chair is not masculine nor feminine in English. Okay, but we clearly are a gendered language. We do have gender. Let's try another one. These are nouns, or maybe they're proper nouns. What's a pronoun? It's one of those. I don't think they're pronouns. They're proper nouns. Thank you. See?
Start putting them on the screen. I'll tell you what they are.
Oh, here's here. Tell me. Okay, same rules. 5 seconds between each word. First idea that comes to your mind, even if it's repulsive, don't worry, it's yours. Just notice it. All right, so where are we at? I mean, our adjectives might be gendered, but certainly not our. They're just nouns.
They're nouns.
Stop trying to be fancy. They're just nouns, people. Come on. All right, but are nouns gendered too? Jen's like, why did I bring her?
Connotation. Not, or just what you. Know, all of them up there.
Inherently, it could, yeah. I mean, maybe not things,
Yeah.
but most of them inherently by themselves are not. It's not like handyman is up there, for example, right? Okay, and you were going to say something. Yeah. Okay. So white supremacy combines the white supremacy portion plus the misogyny. Where do we find these two working together? Yep. When you think of a terrorist, who comes to your mind? January 6th. Yep. Timothy McVeigh. Yep. Unabomber. A taxi driver. Or Lyft or Uber, sorry. I made this a few years ago before they were still
I
green
know,
and yellow
taxi
taxi
driver.
New York. Yeah.
That's record, right?
No.
Home record. You see a man in that?
Mm.
Yeah. Yeah. Immigrant, person of color immigrant, not like they're,
Irish immigrant.
for example, Ukrainian. Okay. Yeah. So when people say, I didn't mean that word, it's a neutral word. It's not gendered. It's not misogynist. It's not racist. It's just a word. What are you going to say? Well, I heard Pooja speak and she says you're wrong. What are you going to say? How do we respond to that? How will you respond to that?
Okay, well, maybe that's what you think of. That's not what I think of. Like I tend to have the nouns that represent who I don't have in my immediate circle are the ones that my brain like invented a stereotype for.
Yeah.
So like if I don't know any
Pilots?
plumbers, which is not in my personal circle anyway, I'm like my mind is like conjuring like a sort of a cartoonish like not an image I'm proud of what a plumber is, right? But yeah, so if someone said to me, oh well, that suggests to me yada yada yada, I would say, well, okay, that might be true for you, but I know someone that doesn't match that for me.
Yeah.
That's one way you could.
Yeah. I like that intro because it says, well, that might be it for you, but I wonder what your experience is. And the second sentence I would start with is, and we talked about this in our workshop, is because I wonder if a woman of color showed up at your doorstep and said, I'm your plumber, how how would you give that person the benefit of the doubt? How much benefit of the doubt are you giving to people that you think is a neutral word, but when they actually show up and you need them for something, or your doctor shows up, I mean, countless examples of that, or the pilot, is not a white man, and you're like, are we safe? So like, it does, I like this intro of like, maybe that is for you, but I wonder, and we talked about this phrase, I wonder, in our workshop, I wonder what you might think. And you don't need to answer this now, it's just a thought exercise, but I wonder who you give the benefit of the doubt to. If they are your normal, and you think it's gender neutral, if you think homewrecker is gender neutral, I wonder when you read that word, what image pops into your head.
This is embarrassing, but I was reading a children's book to my son, and it was, Monsters, Inc. something. Anyway, in the story, someone has to go to the doctor. They're very nervous about it, and then and like their friend was like, "Oh, don't worry, she's going to be great. Like she'll ask you some questions." And as I was reading it, I stumbled over the word "she." I was like, "How could that be?" Like it was horrible, very embarrassing, And then I kept reading it, and I was like, "Oh my God!" Like it goes so deep, It's horrible. But hopefully, if we keep on reading stories like that to our kids, they won't do a double take when they see a female doctor.
Yeah, I know. It is. That's why it has to be a daily practice. Oh, how much time do we have? There's two huge things I really want to get to. Okay, great. 3 minutes, right? Yeah. Yeah, thanks, Marlo. So, okay. Let's take a poll. If we, and just tell me your needs right now. If we went like an extra 20 minutes, is it okay? And if not, don't worry about it. We'll just go to the reception and talk there. Off camera.
Yeah.
20 minutes is okay? Okay. Okay, great. If you need to leave and take a bathroom break, do what you need. Okay, I want to talk about, and let me just, yeah, that's still good. Okay. I want to talk about what this is so dark, right? It was so bright, light up. Okay. I want to talk about the white feminism's relationship to white supremacy. Okay, so we got white supremacy as this umbrella that includes misogyny and classism and ableism and eugenics and all of the things. And then we had the Civil Rights Act of 1964, and we had a lot of affirmative action helping white women. And then this white feminism in every movement that was taken to begging white men to give white women rights, women of color were discarded and put to the side for the advancement of women as in general, but really it benefited white women. So can we talk about white feminism? What do you know about it? What does it mean to you? How does it relate to where we're at?
Yeah, I was really interested to learn about the topic of white feminism because to me that was, I hadn't really thought about it before. But when I started reading about it and thinking about these, it was making me think a lot about centering and who is centered when we talk about the work that we do and equity work. And like, who has the burden of making it happen? So a lot of the discourse that I've seen around white feminism, there's this concept that we are inviting, it's an invitation to men to, participate in the feminist movement. And that, this idea that you would have to invite someone in to do that, to do that work, like they require an invitation. It reminds me of when very recently my husband was in charge of the kids for the afternoon. I was out shopping, whatever. I have a 2-year-old. He takes a nap every day at 12:30. I mean, every day, 12:30. I come home at 2. My son, my 2-year-old, is like standing there like swaying. And I was like, did he nap? Like, what's going on? And my husband, who I love very much, said, you didn't tell me he needed a nap. And I was like, and he was like, I mean, sorry. But in that moment, you know, like, it's like that it's my job, to tell you when your son needs a nap. No, no, sir. Like, and it's not like our job to, you know, invite men to be feminists. We don't, like, that is not your job. We don't need to have that job. We have enough jobs. So this idea of like, that you need to center, you know, another concept that I was reading about is tone policing. And that was resonating with me. The fact that like this idea that there's one way to advocate for women's rights, and it's in the voice of a white woman with a white woman's experiences and life and education and everything and background. And Black women and women of color diminishes their voices and their experiences and what they are bringing into the discourse, instead of being inclusive and being inclusive with intentionality. Anytime that you are speaking up and speaking out, how are you doing so in a way that is bringing everyone along together? So, you know, I was thinking about this with, my train of thought. This idea that inclusivity, bringing everyone together, it'll come back to me. Anyway.
It reminds me of, you know, like the Human Rights Campaign for gay marriage and how we completely left trans people out of that movement because it was the same playbook of white women leaving women of color out of like the voting rights movement. You know, yeah, so.
Talk about how do you
Yes, exactly. How we re-perpetuate those same dynamics, even as people with marginalized identities. Yes, of course we replicate that. Oh God, in all sorts of ways.
I remember now. So I learned about this tool called, it's a project management tool called Smarty Mocha. And they're like, we're using it in my office. It's this great tool for managing projects and who's the owner of the project, who's the decider. And as part of the tool, and who has to consult, who you need to consult with on the project. You know, we're a bureaucracy, so we have a lot of like these types of projects. And one of the steps in the Smarty Mocha framework is to kind of do a check for any groups or people or organizations that you are unintentionally excluding by the way that the project is designed. And so when you are designing a project to say like, oh, you know, we made this project, we're gonna like launch, you know, we're doing a training, we're organizing a training. It meets, the working committee meets on Wednesday afternoons, and everyone on the grants unit is in a team meeting on Wednesday afternoons, so none of them can participate. You know, that it makes you do a check.
Mhm.
And I like that idea of like, when you are stepping forward and taking an initiative, to have that check, to have say like, who am I excluding unintentionally by the way that I'm going about this campaign? What unintentional impact could I be having on my community that's negative by the way this is designed and by the way that I'm thinking, because I know I'm thinking from my own unique perspective of like, but also narrow. And so I really like that idea of, you know, that could be counteracting against these white feminists kind of like really narrow tunnel vision ideas.
Yeah. You want to plug that app one more time?
It's not an app. It's like a framework. It's called Smarty Mocha. I don't know. We use it a lot.
Okay, great.
At ILS, we use Smarty Mocha.
I want to get more to the white feminism piece. And this thing I just saw, I'm preparing for today. I saw it, what are we, Monday? I saw it Saturday. When you go through Apple News, I'm not a subscriber, so I couldn't click on it. My wife was like, what does it say? And I was like, who cares what it says?
How should I dress?
Yeah. Yeah. That's hilarious. Like she's going to take advice from the Wall Street Journal.
Yeah,
Well,
I'm lost
white.
without the Wall Street Journal.
So what does it say? Oh, you know what? That's so funny. How should older women dress in 2025, especially if you're over 60? I read, how should white women dress? I really read that because I was like, who's going to click on this thing? And why are you taking fashion advice from the Wall Street? What's happening? And why is this one of the top 5 stories coming up on my phone?
That's your algorithm, baby.
Oh yeah, it's my fault. Yeah. Okay, and this one I found, and it says 1 day old. It's actually 2 days old now. I did also find it on Saturday. So it says, if you're, because we just had Mother's Day, right? So if your adult son doesn't reach out or make plans for Mother's Day, please reconsider blaming his wife, okay?
Obviously, your first reaction.
It's likely she reminded him, maybe she even picked out the card, ordered the gift, suggested the visit, but at the end of the day, it's his responsibility, not hers. We need to stop expecting women to manage everyone's relationships and start holding men accountable for their own. Now, when you first read this, you're like, yeah. And then you're like, wait a second. It's 2025. It's not 1975 when Toni Morrison was speaking at the college, right? Isn't this, aren't younger, I work with a lot of Gen Z people because they keep me, focused and like in line of like what's happening in this world. And it's just so informative to work with younger generations. And, they say like, why are we still here? And it's like, literally, why are we still here? This is a white woman who made this. I looked up the account. The white woman, blue skied this. I don't know how you say it. And the fact that, I would get this can someone rewrite this ad hoc? Can we rewrite this to say what it should say in an anti-oppression way?
He doesn't love you.
Yeah, it's your fault.
It is definitely your fault.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like what else is problematic here? What in this white supremacist way of thinking? What else is problematic? That he has a wife? Yeah.
Adult child, you have to be a son, your daughter.
Yeah, that's right. Daughters can forget Mother's Day too, Andrea.
I forgot Father's Day last year, and I was off the grid. And my dad's like, "Are you dead?"
Is that when they called me?
Yeah, that's when they called you. And I think yeah, okay. So, okay, lots of problems here. What about that word reconsider? Gosh, that's gentle. Remember in our workshop, and for those who were in our faculty workshop, some people were like, don't use too strong of a language, tone it down a little bit. Well, that's what happens when you tone it down. You say stupid shit like reconsider. I'm sorry, it's late and I'm tired. I'm tired of this. Okay, reconsider is also a hot button word.
And it's like, let's give her the benefit of the doubt. She probably ordered the gift, made the plan, like reminded you to do, it's like.
Yeah, it's too much.
It's too much.
So when we see a tweet or a comment like this, we're going to call it for what it is. It's a white supremacist way of thinking that combines misogyny with white supremacy. Okay.
I know. I know.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I would divorce him. Ugh.
Hetero.
Yeah.
Right. Like think that this is a
Right. Like I wanna push that out.
Yeah.
I am advocating for all daughters and moms.
Right.
Yeah.
Part of like.
Yes. right? Or like the way that you're framing the argument in and of itself is assuming all these like weird burdens. Yeah.
Yeah, I noticed that too. 34,900 people? Yeah, still. Oh. Yes, yes, that's coming up very much. Okay, remember, it's hope and optimism, but
Sorry. I'm like, social media should not exist.
but you know, we are to have that hope and optimism when your eyes are fully open is hard. So since our eyes are fully open, we want to be as critical as possible. I'm going to put some stuff up. We don't have time, but I want you to take a picture of it and go through it with your trusted people who can challenge you on all of this. So these are just a few dog whistles. If I'm in the way, I'm happy to move. So it says diversity applicant. Okay, we've kind of already covered that dog whistle. Decent, hardworking Americans. So what comes to your mind? These are all 4 different ones. So law and order, thug, race, and immigrant. Religious freedom and states' rights. I really wanted these dog whistles up there, and I really wanted us to go through it, but we don't have the time. But you can do it now with all of what we've talked about today. Okay, I'm sorry, I have to flip through a few slides without explaining them. I'll go through this because it's important, but the next 5, just close your eyes, pretend you don't see them. Okay, when we talk about privilege or white privilege and all of this stuff, there's 5 ways privilege manifests. One is consistent physical safety. So if you never fear violence based on any marginalized identity you have that privilege of feeling safe all the time. Opportunity, let's say your parents networked for you, or your parents introduced you, or you had your first internship was through your family network. Access to opportunity, so who wrote your recommendation letters, your first internship, where was that? And these last 2 are the most insidious forms of privilege because they're hard to prove. Being seen as the authority in any context, so who gets to be seen as the person in charge or with power, and getting the benefit of the doubt, which when you don't get it, you always know, but it's impossible to prove. And so we just have to believe each other that we're not getting the benefit of the doubt. So 5 forms of privilege manifest in these 5 ways. So when and I'm telling you this because we're talking about speaking precisely and specifically. So if you're talking about your power, be specific about which power you're talking about. Okay, this is where we're flipping through. Don't read it. Okay. I want to close with bridging what was happening at my time at Union with what is happening now. We went to college between 1999 and 2003. In that time, the second Intifada started in 2002. In 2023, the genocide in Gaza started. In 2003, we watched the start of the Iraq War. I was in the Spanish House, Language House A, and we watched it on TV. Like, we watched the Twin Towers fall on TV, and then 2 years later, we watched the first bombs fall. And now on TikTok, we're watching Palestinian families plead for their lives. Everything, it's all being televised, but it's not the revolution being televised, it's the genocide being televised. In 2003, Rachel Corrie sat in front of an Israeli bulldozer to protest the building of illegal settlements and further illegal occupation. And in 2023, and now in 2025, we have over 200 journalists killed, mainly in Gaza, one specifically in the West Bank, Shireen Abu Akleh, who was a Palestinian-American journalist with roots in New Jersey, who was murdered for being part of the press. So when we talk about like, oh, why is this happening now? It's been decades. It's been Reagan, it all goes back to Reagan. all of this mess that we're in. We couldn't have been here. We couldn't have been in this place of fascism had not the last 50 years happened. It had to have happened. And so we need to know that very specifically to understand where we are now, and of course, the history before that. And the movement of Black Lives Matter with Palestine solidarity has been there for more than 50 years. Since the start, there has been solidarity between the movements because of the anti-apartheid movements during South African apartheid, and then also the way we treat each other here. So it's not new, it just is. And it will continue, except we have hope in all of this. We know where we are at. We're not lost. What can I do? Now you know what you can do, and now you know what you will do. And I just wanted to reiterate, 5 copies of this will be in Jen's office, hopefully in the next few weeks. So if you want this, go ahead, ask Jen for it, take a copy, work through it, return it, whatever you want to do. But this is so important because it teaches us the path forward. And visit Deepa Iyer's website, the Building Movement Project. All the worksheets are on there for you. All right, and it's really hard. So find ways to nourish yourself in your relationships, by yourself, with nature, for sure, with food, with laughter. Okay, one last quick response code. Did you know that QR stands for quick response?
No.
You're welcome.
Oh my God. I learned so much today.
You knew. Some people knew. This is just a very quick evaluation. Let us know what you want us to talk about in future workshops and other speeches, what Union College can invest in later. Let us know what you're interested in. Claire, I want to thank you so much for having this conversation with me. You are so easy to talk to. And
Pooja makes a safe space to be taking risks. And that's why, well, that's just one of the many reasons I love you.
Oh.
But I always feel safe, even when I'm saying really, really dumb things.
Claire, you can't say that.
Sorry.
And it's vice versa, okay? So I'm not the expert and I don't know everything, so I make mistakes constantly. I want to leave you with one 2-second anecdote as to how this work can come into our daily life. So it's 2016, my wife and I are planning our wedding, and I'm calling around for like honeymoon spaces, just like a 3-day, like get out of the city and relax type of thing. And so every accommodation I call, I ask, is this accommodation LGBTQ friendly? And it's not because I want the truth. It's just I want their automatic response. Remember when you did Who is Your Normal? Like that's what I'm listening for. And so I ask, is this accommodation LGBTQ friendly? She goes, oh, of course. And we're so excited to have you and your wife join us. And I say, well, that's a good response. So let's go. And I'll give you my credit card. And she goes, great, I'll book it. I give her a credit card. And at the end of the call, she says, I just want to say, I'm really sorry you even have to ask that question in the first place. And you know, that made all the difference because I saw a caregiver, I saw a healer in her, and I saw someone who possibly could be a disruptor if needed when we're at that location. It was a phenomenal honeymoon. But that is how we bring anti-oppression work into our daily life, that we show how we care through our very specific words and our understanding of the subtext. So thank you so much. Thank you, Claire.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jen. And thank you to all of you here. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Downstairs.